I'm coming, horror addicts. Hello, horror addicts. I'm Kristin Battestella, aka Kbatz, and as you can see, I am surrounded by pumpkins. Stuffed pumpkins, to be exact. Now, I may write the Frightening Flix TV and movies blog, do a little bit of the podcast we have at horroraddicts.net, but the website is so much more. We do culture, gaming, lifestyle, fashion, and often on our Facebook community, we talk about how a little bit of customization, a little bit of crafting, DIY, and know-how helps in making something a little bit of a darker aesthetic. So, with that in mind, I wanted to show you how to do a little DIY on our stuffed pumpkins. Because, you know, when you go to the store, they're popular, they're everywhere. Some of these little ones, maybe $3, $5, you know, $10 medium, $20, $25 when you're getting into a bigger fancy pumpkin. And you want a lot. You want a big pumpkin pile, a big pumpkin patch. All of a sudden, that's getting kind of pricey. So, Kbatz, maybe I'm just a little cheap. I'm going to show you how to make something with some recyclable materials that you probably already have at home. Now, really, of course, you start with your material, which can be any old thing. You could use something that's a nice pattern. You could go get some really cute kind of Halloween print. Or if you like a lot of those plaids or paisleys, any kind of, you know, pattern pumpkin is what's in style nowadays. I tend to like the ones that are white or orange, the things that look a little more natural. But this black material is actually from t-shirts. That's another fun thing when you want to save a nice little pattern on a t-shirt that maybe too small or has a little bit of a soil or something on it, where you can make the t-shirt into a pillow. So I have all these pillow sleeves. Well, what are you supposed to do with those? Well, we're going to make pumpkins. And obviously the size of your material is going to indicate the shape of your pumpkin. Something like this is going to be a little more squat, where if you had something larger, then you get a nice larger little pumpkin. And really you could use any kind of color, any kind of material, whatever suits your style, whatever you have handy. A lot of these kind of t-shirt and like a sort of a sweater knit kind of fabric, they're pretty stretchy. Maybe some of the silks or satins kind of aren't. Here's a fun one. This was just a little remnant and polka dots are in, and this is more of a silky kind of satin kind of fabric. So generally, whatever the shape of the fabric is going to be the shape of your pumpkin. These already are obviously sewn at one end, but you want this kind of tube kind of material. It's tough to see the black on black there. You want this kind of tube sort of material. And the only kind of color, as much as I love it, I would not recommend using red because I would just be afraid that my pumpkin would look like a tomato. As much as I love tomatoes, that's not what we're doing here today. So I did use red contrasting. Hopefully you can see this because I'm not fancy enough like a cooking show to show you some really exotic close-ups of my crafty work. You do want to sew your bottom closed. I'm not going to get into a lot of sewing technicalities. This does take a little bit of a basting stitch or a little bit of running stitch, maybe it's called. You could do all this on a machine, but some of this material, this kind of material I used was actually a baby blanket. Orange, $4 at Goodwill. If you're using that kind of fabric or some of these sweater kind of fabrics, some of that is a little too thick to go through a sewing machine, and then you're changing maybe your foot or adjusting your gather, or nowadays there's computerized machines that you press a button, and it's all very technical and complicated, and the moment I've mentioned sewing machines, everybody would panic and say, oh no, I can't do that, I don't sew. Yes, you can sew. I don't tend to do this when I'm working on them myself. It takes maybe a weekend when I'm by myself. I don't do it in this sort of step-by-step process that I'm showing you. But this is also a fun thing that the whole family could get involved in sort of assembly line. Mom does the sewing, kids do all the fun stuffing and accessorizing, dad working the hot glue gun. But this is also a good point where you could also show kids how to do a basic little sewing stitch. And you don't have to sew the bottoms. The reason I got into looking into how to make some of these pumpkins was because I did see online where some videos and some how-tos where they sort of just knotted and gathered and tied the bottoms, and it seemed a little too loose for me. I wanted something a little more secure. But if you're into sort of the country rustic kind of styles, if you're using maybe like the burlap or a thicker kind of velvety kind of material and you want sort of a gnarly little pumpkin, that's another thing too. You could just knot and tie off sort of the bottom. Once you have your basic stitch closed, I also go across one way to close it and then across the other way so I could gather it. So I have my stitch complete, and then you can just pull it closed. I mean, worst comes to worst in this case. Sometimes you may break your thread, you may pull or yank too hard, but you could always do it over. It's a little annoying and maybe extra time consuming, but that's okay. And you can, double or quadruple your thread or use maybe, something that's a little more sturdy. But you pull and you can close that off, make a little knot, but you have your little gather, and then you can turn it right side out. And that's the basic beginnings of your pumpkin, believe it or not. Now your outer edge around here, you'll go through again with a basting sort of running kind of stitch because you're going to gather it closed. So you say to me, Kbatz, with what do we stuff our pumpkin? You can stuff your pumpkin with anything. The whole beauty of this is that it is something that's customizable, affordable. You can use things that you already have. You could be fancy and go pick out your fancy, luxurious Halloween print lacy kind of fancy fabric and use real nice proper foam and polyfill kind of stuffing. But again, you're getting into something expensive when you can use things that you already have. If you have packing peanuts, any of that kind of packing paper or bubble material that comes inside packing, if you have old newspaper, the paper from inside your paper shredder, something you would normally throw away to waste, is something that can be useful here. If you have other kind of maybe rag kind of linens or odd socks, even like your dryer lint, if you want them to actually smell a little nicer, you could actually use some dryer sheets inside. My favorite thing to use is plastic bags. I recently moved, so granted, I probably have a lot more plastic and kind of packing kind of materials to fill up all these huge pumpkins. But you can use 4, 5, 6 plastics per pumpkin. No matter how much you may reuse them elsewhere, it seems like you always have plastic bags. You can always get a supply. If you intend to do this, you can save up a couple weeks and you already have quite a bit. And you could bunch them quite tight, and that's where you could end up with some of these little smaller kind of pumpkins that I did here, maybe only a little fist. This is the fun part for kids. And again, you can just trial and error. Again, worst comes to worst, maybe you've stuffed too much, so you have to take a little bit out. You maybe have to add a little more. You can go crazy. That's the fun part for the kids, I suppose. So here I have, it's difficult to see because I'm surrounded by pumpkins. A pumpkin that's generally full, and you draw a string, your top closed. It doesn't have to be completely perfectly closed. We're gonna decorate on top of that shortly. And again, maybe with a darker material, it might be a little tougher to see, but you have little gather lines that you can adjust around the top too, which some of these, that's kind of done. A pumpkin like this, I didn't add any other kind of extra accessories or any other kind of pumpkin seams on them. Again, you could be fancy and cut your material and sew on some seams, but that's getting into something a little complicated. Some of these are cute plain. When you're looking at some of these ones that are knit from, this was an old sweater, it already has some of these little kind of lines. Or sometimes if you have a silly fun print, you don't want anything else to kind of cover it up. You want the sort of print is what's to show. And some of these plain ones, some of the beauty of this is we tend to think of, pumpkin, Halloween. We get excited for our time of season, but pumpkins are really decorations through Thanksgiving. So if you're at, maybe a school or Sunday school or a workplace or such where maybe overt Halloween things are frowned upon, you could have just a cute little plain pumpkin. That's that. But something like this also, if you were more of an artist, you could do any kind of jack-o'-lantern designs on top. Kids can cut out some nice felt triangles, and again, just glue stick them on there, and you can make also jack-o'-lantern kind of materials as well. Really, you can make this any kind of style that you want. That's what's so awesome about it. So the little thread here also, I'll use as an example. You could use any kind of contrasting kind of color. You could make it match on match. You could use cute little Halloween ribbons design. A lot of these I did just with a nice kind of natural kind of yarn kind of color that works with anything. This is one that's plain, that doesn't have anything. There you go, you can see it. It's just a nice little spooky little pumpkin. But you take your whatever thread or seam material, and you just can go around and make nice little loops and loops. And again, you have to adjust as you go. One of the great things also about when you're using the plastic bags is that that still makes your pumpkin a little pliable, that you can do whatever kind of adjustments you want. So then you can see that you begin to get, you know, the little bit of sort of plump sections of a pumpkin, which is also really kind of cool. But then we come to a little bit of decoration part. I use on the top just these dollar store kind of leaves. Again, you could be specific. You could cut out your own maybe felt shaped designs that maybe match a little more of a natural kind of pumpkin vine. You know, I do have real gourds growing in the garden, Dad, don't worry. But I'm not so particular. These are kind of oak or maple kind of autumn kind of themes. And you could go into whatever kind of color scheme you want. Again, this is kind of fun. Maybe if you did have kids, I tend to use the hot glue gun. But if you're working with kids, maybe just regular tacky glue or Elmer's glue, they can decorate however they want. It's a little one that's, you can do reds, whites, yellows, oranges, pinks. I wouldn't do pink, but whatever design you like. And that covers up whatever little hole, whatever little unsightly kind of knots and ties and things we have at the top. And again, you can decorate however you like. You can have them continue on any kind of down the bottoms, any kind of seams. Another thing that's in design or vogue nowadays with all the polka dot kind of pattern kind of pumpkins, you could have little bats, little spiders, whatever kind of fun stuff you would like alongside all your little leaves. You know, a little bug on top if you like, to match your leaves' natural aesthetic. And as you can see, for the stems, I'm not into a lot of the country kind of rustic kind of pumpkins, and I don't really like everything that's all glitter. You could glitterize everything as you want, but I do like a little bit of whimsicalness to some of the pumpkins, and that's why I love to use the pipe cleaners for my stems. Again, you could use any other kind of little plastic gourds you could stick on top. They make any kind of little decorative little mini pumpkins to stick on there. Little fake little pieces of wood sticks. Cinnamon sticks you could stick on top as your little stem. That makes, again, a nice little scent to them. You could send the kids outside and tell them to go pick up some sticks and use actual real pieces of wood to stick up out of the tops. But the pipe cleaners, I think, are kind of safe, maybe if you're worried about having a pile of, you know, pumpkins surrounded by kids with nice little woody sharp objects or animals about. And you just coil it on your finger, and you can make, you know, however many you want to tight or stretched out to scale or exaggerated on your pumpkin. And you could have one for one stem, two. You could have them sticking out. The little topiaries are kind of popular. You can have them sticking out wherever you want. Again, you're really only limited here by your materials, whatever you're willing to spend or what you already have at your disposal, and really your style and creativity and imagination. And all those things should be unlimited, shouldn't they, addicts? So this is something that is fun. You can do it a weekend with the family. And as you can see, you can end up with a lot of pumpkins. So I hope this is something that you'll try. And remember, you can visit us at horroraddicts.net and see more of our crafts and Halloween DIYs and fun things that we have happening. Or you can join the conversation on our Facebook group and show us some of your Halloween fun. And right now, I still have more stumpkins to puff. Oh my gosh. It has definitely been too long on this video, hasn't it, Horror Addicts? I'm going to stuff more pumpkins, and I'm going to get up and turn off the camera. So, bye.